So, Jenni, Peter, viewer listener mailbag question from Jackie C., who asks whether it is normal to have ministers' staffs appointed, chosen, and hired by the Prime Minister's office as opposed to by the minister, him or herself, and whether that is leading to greater concentration in the center in this government. Jenni, why don't you start?
Well, as someone that's done transition in terms of staffing, both at a federal level in 2006 and at provincial level in 2018, it's very normal for all levels of government, I think, regardless of the party, to coordinate senior hiring with ministers. I'm not saying that ministers people are pushed on ministers, and it's usually done very collaboratively, but it usually is done in terms of an agreement between ministers. It would be very rare that someone that the Prime Minister's office didn't want as a chief of staff would be hired as a chief of staff in a minister's office. And in fact, just from a practical point of view or from an administrative point of view, provincially, all staffing decisions are signed off out of the Premier's office, out of the Secretary of Cabinet's office. So it's not just theory; it's also in practice.
All right, Peter.
Yeah, listen, I think these things are dynamic, right? I mean, I think ultimately you want to have people in these offices that both sides are happy with, and it shouldn't be a fiat imposed by the Prime Minister's office. There needs to be a modus vivendi. There needs to be kind of like a good feeling on both sides, and so it shouldn't have to come to that. I will say this I think it's part of a larger problem, and it's not just the Trudeau government; it's governments generally now. Whereas we're kind of loath to give ministers any kind of free rein, and it's because of this extreme pressure for message control. And I think it's crazy because I think that it's as if you went to see a play or a movie, and every character says the same lines. That's not what we want. We want different characters to play different roles in a play or movie. And that's exactly what we want to hear from a government. Different ministers representing different points of view, representing different constituencies, different options, developing recognizable personalities for the public. And I think that this extreme message kind of discipline in which everybody's reading the same talking points, doesn't matter whether you're Minister of Finance or a Minister of Canadian Heritage, I think is a mistake. And I think it actually feeds the sense that all these politicians are the same, that ministers are anonymous. Most Canadians couldn't pick a minister out of a lineup right now, and I think that this whole heavy-handed approach to messaging just furthers this ministerial anonymity and interchangeability.
What about the interest of the minister?
Sorry, if I could just cut in. This isn't just that this is a government that doesn't that like on public messaging. It's seemingly like there is ministers that don't speak in private cabinet meetings or in caucus meetings, because otherwise, how would some of the decisions, like the entire fiasco that is we have ever gotten through cabinet? I've sat in cabinet meetings with a prime minister. I've sat in caucus meetings where people were free to. There could be decisions where, Stephen Harper may have disagreed with every single member around the cabinet table, but they were always free to say that, and he welcomed fulsome discussion. This isn't just about a government that's controlling public messaging. They seemingly are controlling private messaging as well, meaning ministers aren't doing the job that they've been assigned to do.
Well, if that's the case, then that helps explain why they keep on stepping in it, doesn't it? Because that function, that provides a kind of tripwire function before stuff goes live, that ministers are able to kind of, toss stuff around, or able to kind of express their concerns. At the end of the day, you got to come to a decision. And at the end of the day, the Prime Minister's vote is always, quote unquote, or the Prime Minister's voice is always outweighs those of other ministers, as it should. But if what you're saying is true, then the problem is that the Prime Minister himself, in this case, is not getting the support and the input that he needs to do the job. And if it is as bad as that, I'm not close to it, so I don't know. But if that's the case, you're right. It's not just a messaging problem; it's a more fundamental one.
What about what's in the minister's? What about what's in the minister's best interest here? Like, might Bill Morneau's fate have been different if he'd had a chief of staff who was loyal to him and was committed to him personally, as opposed to an emissary from the PMO? I mean, it really looks like he was, in addition to his own poor political instincts, incredibly badly served by his staff.
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, I think a lot of that is due to Morneau's unique situation, that he was basically a total newbie going into one of the most senior positions in Ottawa. And he didn't have hadn't developed the kind of Praetorian Guard of people who he'd been through the trenches with, people who he'd come to know and rely on through the years. So I don't think that they were necessarily badly intended, certainly initially, putting people in his office, because he just didn't have that talent pool. But these things, again, you guys know better than anyone. This isn't a science, right? It's an art. It's a bit of this, a bit of that. Human relations are such a huge factor in all this, and a kind of the indefinable but kind of palpable sense of people skills, and they seem to be absent in a lot of this. So yeah, you would think that a minister should have people who around him who are going to look after his interests. Absolutely. I'm not sure, though, in fairness to him, that hasn't been the case, even if these people haven't been close to, even if he hasn't known these people for years and, aren't close to him. I'm not sure that these are, I haven't seen stuff that would indicate that these people were siding with others over him in his office. And in fact, the leaks of the last few days would seem to indicate otherwise.
No, I was really quite taken aback, though, by when he said that he uncovered the $41,000, Jenny, the night before his appearance. Like, how, at the first sign of trouble over were he and his staff not sitting down and going through every possible vulnerability that he had?
Yeah, but that speaks to the issues management of this whole file, from Morneau to Trudeau's office to the rest of them, and it actually speaks against your thesis that he would have been better served with a loyal chief of staff. I'm told the Prime Minister's office found out about that the day that he announced it at committee. So if they were truly Trudeau's people in that office, at the very least, they would have given the Prime Minister's office a heads up, and they would have known about the $41,000.
Yeah, I see that as more of a competence thing than a loyalty thing. And in my books, competence trumps loyalty every day of the week. And there seems to have been a competence problem there, both, by the way, in terms of the Morneau not catching that 41,000 thing, which his staff should have caught for him. And, also in terms of the PM not knowing about this till the night before the cabinet meeting, not knowing that there was a proposal for we to handle this program until the night before the cabinet meeting. I mean, what universe does that happen in?
But that's the issue. We know it's not believable. There's a 0% chance that that's the case.
All right, Jackie C., I think you got your money's worth. Thank you very much for your question.